Hello and good evening to the Turn In podcast, coming after you just straight after Dundalk's, I suppose, disappointing draw with Longford at Bishopsgate. Joining me tonight for the moment is just Gally. Gally, how are you?
Are we well? Not too bad.
Not too bad. And not too bad. Gally, another game, another mistake, goalkeeping mistake again. These are really starting to cost us this league. What was your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I thought, it's awful to sit here again. We're after having a draw. It's away from home. Longford are decent, but again, we're coming back to a keeper error. The first goal, just aside from keeper error, we actually started really poor. I actually thought we started the game pretty poor. Anyway,
yeah.
Keeper errors aside, I don't think we got into the game till well on in the match. But if you've got a situation where Longford pick up that first goal. Longford pick up the ball, but 10 yards inside their own half from a shot, not a shocking pass, but a noble quick pass from Junior to Shields, and they're able to run the length of the field. He's able to run with, I can't remember the player at the minute, and a very simple pass. Now, to me, it looked completely innocuous. I thought Cleary was going to just shield him out. It almost looked like he shot in slow motion. I don't know what. I've seen the replay once, but even then, it's not a slowed down version. I don't know if it's bobbled or it's bounced, or it just seems to.
It's hard to see if it goes over or under the
goal.
Yeah. Sorry? It's hard to see if it goes over, under, or just past his hand.
It's a really strange one. I don't know if there's just a bobble before he dives. He looks like he almost dives in slow motion as well. So it's such a disappointing goal to give away. It's a slack shot. It's a scuffed shot, if anything.
Yeah.
The second goal, look at. Unfortunately, things like that happen. Keepers can drop a ball, but when you've done that to the first goal, it's a shocker. It really is a shocker. And I'm a fan of Peter Cherry. I'm not saying it's a surprise to everybody that he was signed, but I am a genuine fan. I do think he's a good goalkeeper. He's got a great history with the club. But when you're just literally gifting goals like that, and it's a simple ball over the top. It's just kicked at him all to his catch. He doesn't even need to go down with it. He actually goes to the ground, and he doesn't need to do that. He just actually stand up and clutch it in his chest.
Did you think his confidence had gone from the first mistake?
I think probably maybe he's trying to slow. Yeah, he's trying to slow the game down maybe a little as well by diving on the ground, getting a bit of extra seconds out of it maybe. But if you gifted that against Rovers, it could have been a cricket score. But it's just so happens that it's Longford. Look, we have to look at it. I suppose it's slightly positive. We're 2-0 down. If we're 2-0 down 6 weeks ago, we'll bet 2-0. But 2-0 tonight, we come back into it. We get our goals back. I think Junior could have had a hat-trick. But look, on other nights they go in, and you won't win points for chances. We can't talk about chances. You got to score. But I think we have to applaud them for coming back into it. The Dundalk under Filippo maybe and Shane Keegan. Not to go back to that era, but. They probably wouldn't have got back into the match. We might have grabbed the goal, but we probably would have conceded another. It's just a pity we're here again talking. Like, we can take a draw, but when it's an error like that, and look at the goalkeeper's error, individual errors get blown up because of the goalkeeper. But that just can't. It can't happen. It's just such a pity.
And it's just that it's two silly mistakes to put us. You take away those two mistakes tonight, and you would have said, okay. We got goals back in and everything looked okay. But what we went away from for the past few weeks suddenly showed its head again. Like, we were messaging each other during this, kind of saying, why is he playing out here? All of a sudden, we're questioning our formation. And once again, it's back to the middle of the park again. We're looking at Murray. We're looking at Shields, all in here together. And then we got Sloggett back in. We were in this scenario at the start of the year, and we said this wasn't working, having a real holding player beside Shields, because that's Shields' game. All of a sudden, first half in particular, Shields is making mistakes, and that's very uncharacteristic of him. I even seen one or two of his nearly trademark long passes just straight out of play. And it said to me that he probably even felt a little under pressure tonight, and he was trying to do too much. Again, we were back here again. But two goalkeeping mistakes at this level, though, you're going to get punished. You can't give any team in our division a 2-goal lead and expect to win the game. It's asking too much. I think James Rogers had a stat the last time we came from 2 goals behind was in 2009 to actually win a game. So it'll tell you how little we have done that previous. So, you can't be putting yourself given an opportunity to an opposition like that. It's just madness. And like I say, Junior coming back in, I think you said it last week, him playing up top is probably his best position. Playing him out wide, you're not utilising him right. And he took his goal well, that opportunity in the box. And you're thinking, you're halfway through the first half and you pull the goal back, you got to push on here. And it just seemed like, I don't know if it was the conditions, the pitch or something, but it just seemed like it was just end to end. Nobody just settled down and got a pattern of play.
Yeah, when the game kind of started, I think it got a bit slick. The ball got very slick, but when you take your Dundalk hat off, it's slick for both teams. To me, the pitch. I'm not an expert, but I think the pitch could have done with a cut. I think it's a little bit heavy, but it's like that for both teams. That's you got to gain advantage when you can, the likes of Longford. But when we go back to the lineup, I can see why Dundalk had changed the lineup. Sean Murray hasn't played a lot of football. If we're playing Pats tonight or we're playing Shamrock Rovers, he doesn't start. He's come in obviously because he needs the games. We've got Sligo Rovers next week, Finn Harps, and then Shamrock Rovers in quick succession. So I understand, but I think it would have been better to play Zahibo and then maybe bring Murray on for the second half. Try and get ahead in the game. I honestly look, nobody was expecting us to be 2-0 down. Probably a couple of years ago, we probably could have gave away a goal under Stephen Kenny. We probably could have gave away an early goal he got every week.
We never even gave away goals, though.
And that's the thing. Look, we just the way the stars really, you can't afford that. Yeah. And whatever with a goal, when it comes from a keeper, and it knocks everybody. It's bad enough it'll kill Peter Cherry's confidence, but it goes on to the far for the end of the team. You're afraid to give them the ball. Passing out from the back, they're still at it. And then on the flip side, just when we mentioned passing out the back. Longford don't pass out from the back. No. Keeper straight up to Mandy all the time. Mandy made bits of the 2 boys at the back for all the headers.
Yeah. Probably wasn't a night for it though. Probably wasn't a night to be playing out from the back, because under those conditions, if it slides off the top of your foot, you're in trouble. And that's actually just before Shields' goal, that's nearly exactly what happened to him. Yeah. Overcooked the pass, and it was all of a sudden they were nearly in, and I think it was Cleary put in a hell of a block. And next one we went up the other end. But soon as Zahibo came in, suddenly Shields was playing a lot better, I thought, and how we could get an equaliser. It just baffles me sometimes. I mean, we were talking ourselves, Duffy playing out in the right at the end of the first half. It's you're not playing to any of these players' strengths, and that is really, really killing us. But you're absolutely right. For the conditions that was in it tonight, the fact that we were behind and yet we were still playing it calmly out from the back at times, you're thinking, maybe we just needed to up the tempo slightly.
Yeah, and I think it's something that slipped in. Maybe it probably hasn't slipped into the players when you're watching as fans, just for this particular season, and maybe the tail end of last season. When we go 1-0 down, it strikes fear. It doesn't matter what minute it is. We just think, right, the best we're going to get here is a draw. We're not going to get anything else out of this, and that's the worry. That's obviously when 2-0 goes in, it's just an absolute. I actually missed the goal. I had to get the replay of it. I went to make a cup of tea. I couldn't believe it. Like, it was just. It's criminal. You can't do stuff like that. No. The league's I wouldn't say the league's over. It's a very challenging league this year. There's a lot of teams that can beat a lot of teams this year. Like we've seen with Draw to picking up decent points against Bows yesterday, Pats tonight, and Sligo Rovers. But you just can't afford that. You just years ago when we had Stephen Kenny's team, maybe. But you just can't. You can't start games like that. I know keepers' errors can happen. But we have this problem it's only the last 2 games we didn't really have keepers' errors as far as I can think of. It just seems to be a recurring nightmare for us. And there's only one way to fix it. And that's
we've had keepers' errors. We'd Cleary giving away the penalty that time against Bows, wasn't it? Yeah. There's a catalogue of little errors this year that I would say were definitely under Stephen Kenny, but even with Vinny and that, mistakes weren't something you would associate with Dundalk Football Club. It was very, very rare that we would make them. And now it seems like teams play by putting us under pressure because they know we're going to make a mistake in some way. There's somebody in this team that's going to make a mistake. And like I said, once we concede, heads tend to go down all of a sudden.
Yeah. And we just don't seem to have that. I know this is probably the third time I mentioned, but when Stephen Kenny's team went down 1-0, it was look, we'll get back into it. It's early doors. We've 80 minutes, we've 70 minutes, and I think that's just something that's filtered in. It's not from it's just the season, the start of the season they've had, and look, it's going to play with our minds. The mental attitude might drop. Then, I just keep thinking that if we had have done our due diligence, if we had have got someone in, like Abibi was obviously a Filippo signing. Right? I don't want to go back to this, but somebody had to say this boy hasn't played a competitive game since 2019. Somebody had to say he can come in and be the #1 goalkeeper for ex-League of Ireland champions. But we're over the last 10 years, we've been the best footballing team the country's seen. How this got passed over, I've absolutely no idea. And how nobody thought, listen, we'd go and get someone. This is what's going to cost us. These are games that are going to cost us. Whatever we're losing against Rovers or Pats or whatever, when you go down to Longford.
Yeah.
No, like, don't get me wrong, Longford were excellent. I can't take any away from the way Longford played. They were brilliant.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I don't think we should take
there's no excuse for that.
Yeah. I think it's been mentioned in the comments already tonight, and everybody keep your comments coming. I'll get to what I can just as we're going here, but I even when you compare, budget wise and everything with the two teams, like we're miles ahead. Of course, where a club like Longford are, but it just come in there from Kyle before, and just even here now from Darren Meenan, and we're back to chopping and changing this team again. We're after getting 2 results from a settled side. All of a sudden, we're ringing in the changes, and we have an inconsistent performance again. Yeah,
and like I said earlier, I can see. It's not that I can see the logic in it. I can see what maybe they were thinking. Right, we'll bring Val in at left back. I don't know if Darrell Lee's injured. I don't know what that fella has to do to get a game at left back. But I think they've obviously chopped and changed. Saying, look, we go down to Longford. Even our weakest team, our weakest lineup is probably a match for Longford, but they got caught short completely. It's and that's what happens. You have to live and die by these decisions, and that 2 drop points. Like, I know we're only mid-table, we're 9th, I think, at the minute, are we? But it's games like this that'll cost us. It's games like this that'll stop us getting top 4. Never mind top 2 winning leagues. Like, we will struggle. The way things are going, we will definitely struggle to finish in the top 4 this season. The way things are going on, because we're chopping and changing. We finally had like you said, we finally had the 2 lineups for the last 2 weeks. I can understand maybe giving boys an hour on the field tonight off, half time, because you've got 5 subs. The worst thing that can happen to this Dundalk team is we've got 5 subs to use. Get it back to 3, and then they just have to pick. They can't make 5 subs. It's just baffling. Like, you have the luxury of 5 substitutes and you just abuse the privilege of it. It's just stupid. Like, you don't have to make the subs. It's 5 max. You don't have to make any subs. It's frustrating. There's no other word putting on it. It's just frustrating. And when you've got players like Chris Shields, like I actually said in the group, it was 10 minutes before he scored, he looked tired. He just looked like he was just wrecked. But then you're just heavily reliant on him. You just can't. And we said this, and I think we said that in the first podcast. What do you do if Chris Shields gets injured?
There's no other replacement.
Like Zahibo might be a logical explanation or a reason now, but it's frightening how much we're going to depend on him. But I
think the only positive we could probably take from the result, well, probably we could always take that it's another game undefeated. It's 5 games undefeated. We have to find some sort of positives to build from ourselves on. I know out of those 5 games, only 2 are wins, so that's not acceptable. And you consider some of the teams we have played, that we should be getting wins against a lot of these. But Val coming in tonight, I think he looked okay though. He didn't seem out of place.
I actually thought, I was surprised. I see them play against Drogheda, and he came off a couple of minutes. I can't remember what game, but I thought he actually was very good. But again, when we've got Darrell Lee, maybe he's got a nickel, maybe he's got an injury. I don't know.
But Lee was on the bench, so
yes, he's got another. Yeah, he's another one, under 21 international. So I don't really. Maybe there's a logic to it. Maybe he wanted to deal with the right winger from Longford. For me, Lee, he would play, but that's you live and die. I don't think Val done anything majorly wrong. I thought he was actually very good going forward.
Yeah,
he's got a lot of pace about him. He's built. He's well fit for it. Physical. He's excellent. But again, it's 2 changes, himself and Murray, and then they've played him with Stogan out right last couple of weeks to bring him on. He's up front, and look, it's you know, I know you're trying to take the positives out of it. And the positive for me is that we're 2-0 down and we come back. You know, you gotta look at that. But I don't buy this thing. I've seen a lot on Twitter. You know, oh, we should have scored this. We've got chances. You won't get points for chances. You got to put them away. I know that it's slick. Longford could have got 3. They hit the side net. I actually was up. I thought they actually scored.
I thought, yeah. I thought it was it.
But I just think that, again, it's not that we looked like we were all over the shop. It just looked like we just couldn't relax. The subs coming on just didn't seem to fit. I don't know what they were told to come on, what position they were told to come on to, but it just seemed like it was just a bit higgledy-piggledy. That's probably the best way to describe it. It's children's language, but yeah, look, we can, no matter what way you play, if your keeper's making mistakes, like we had tonight, unfortunately, there's nothing. All the training in the world can't do that. You know, there's nothing. You build up for a week for a game like that, and the keeper. That's the way we start after 15. There's no explanation for that. You know, you can't. It's just it's unfortunate. But look, we came back into the game. We're 2-2. You have to take it. Oh, we could have won it.
Well, it's the thing. Like I think when Daniel Kelly came in, and you know, someone actually naturally playing on the right hand side, all of a sudden we had pace down that side from him, and I think it kind of stretched the game in our favour at that stage. But I don't want to gloss over the performance. I know, like at the moment, we're trying to find some sort of positives, but like a 2-2 draw, it's not acceptable. As I say, if we had a won tonight, even I think Derry are currently beating Finn Harps 1-0. We could have been fourth by a point tonight on 12 points. Now we're not. So, you know, these are the fine margins.
And games like this that will cost us places in the league, and it's such a pity. Like considering the 2 games we've just had as well, it's like I was full sure we would have won tonight. Now I thought we might have won by 2 goals. I think that was what I said last week, but I honestly didn't see Longford scoring twice. I didn't see them go 2-0 down. Us 2-0 down. But it's just a pity. I think we understand we were on the cusp of something. We were on a bit of a run there, especially going into next week. Sligo Rovers big game next week. Finn Harps, the way they are playing, it's a big game as well. And then we've got Shamrock Rovers, and I just think it's just massively deflating going into next week. But look, we got the draw. We you know, a point. It's a point. It's 2 points drop.
It's 2 points drop. Yeah, there's no way of getting around that. It's 2 points. I know you pull it back from 2 goals behind, but no, it's definitely 2 points drop tonight. Yeah. I think we were waiting for Steph to come in at some stage tonight, but I think we will plough on with the main attraction tonight. A guy who, looking at the defendant tonight, I'm sure will be absolutely livid. But this man is an absolute legend, and we don't use that lightly to Dundalk Football Club. And you know, when you think about 570 appearances for this club, you know, and the list of honours just goes on and on and on with him. I think we'll just bring him straight back in. Absolutely. Martin Lawlor, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Chris, guys, thank you so much for that introduction. It's lovely to be here. You know, I feel the pain from the previous conversation around the performances. And it's probably, we're a very expectant bunch up in Dundalk as supporters, as I am now. And I see in the conversation, I hear in the conversation quite a number of points that are so kind of in your face that they're unavoidable to discuss. And if you just maybe a wee comment about the current situation, I just think there's a huge inconsistency there at the moment. And with that inconsistency, I also think on the other side of the coin that there's a massive, massive opportunity for Dundalk to go and power their way to the top of the table. If the opportunity is recognised and it's taken, and the responsibility, excuse me, of that opportunity is taken by the players and the management. I'm looking, viewing the last number of games. I thought the Derry performance was a tepid performance. I thought the performance against Drogheda was tepid. I see a lack of leadership, a lack of passion. I don't see any of the Dundalk players not fighting with each other, but being demanding of each other. I don't see the forwards kind of, coming back and talking to the defenders and saying, give me the ball. If you don't give me the ball, I will strangle you, type of thing. And again, the game has changed from the time I played, but there's one element that should never change. When somebody puts on that shirt with that crest, that element should be passion and responsibility for the responsibility that I have on my shoulders going onto the park. And I feel that's missing. And I picked up on the commentary that just had about, around Chris Shields. I think perhaps Chris is a little bit worn out of the lack of passion around him, because the ability is unquestionable. The resources are there. I think there's, I think there was a missed opportunity in signing a really, really good goalkeeper to give stability to a defensive scenario. And again, I know the game is changing between using a 3 and a 4, but whatever you're going to do, whatever system you're going to play at the back, I think, again, a commonality in that right throughout football has been, if you're going to use a 3, make sure that they are a consistent 3 that nearly name themselves every week, other than a wall falling on one of them. And the same with a back 4. Let the back 4, let people be able to rhyme off the back 4 as consistently as anything else. Whatever about other changes and substitutions, I think you should always have your foundation really, really strong. And I think I think that's something that at this early stage of the season can be rectified. I'm loving some of the talent that's there, but I think some of the talent that's there need a kind of a good size 9 Puma or Adidas or whatever up the backside, and be explained that, look at, you've come into this environment. It's called Dundalk Football Club, and it's forever and a day been based on the one fundamental, first and foremost, of a platform of passion, and then we go and we use our skills, and we go and we pummel teams, or we come back from disastrous situations like we experienced this evening, and we go and we just beat teams. You're always going to get setbacks, but I think a common thing is, get yourself a solid goalkeeper, get yourself a solid 3 or a solid 4, and work from there. And I'd like to see a passion, a bit of passion coming back in. I'd like to see fellas fighting among themselves, just to get that, ramp up that passion, because I think if that happens in Dundalk, I think there's every opportunity that we'll be up to second or third in a heartbeat, within a 5 or 6 game period. And I think all the resources, I think everything's there. It just needs somebody to say, yeah, hang on, this can't happen at Dundalk Football Club. Let's go and sort it out.
Martin, I think one thing they'd always associate with you and the defences you played in, you were always quite tight, leaked very little goals in it. I mean, is it just having a settled back 4 and a keeper you can rely on? Is that one of the major cogs that we're missing this year, do you think?
Yeah, I think I think the inconsistency in the selection is there for all to see. And as I said, whether you use a 3 at the back, if that's your system, you make those instantly recognizable. This chopping and changing, I mean, there's injuries and stuff like that. But I think at the start of a season, fellas there should there should be scratch marks on the door of the dressing room, wanting to get out on the park, and I mean that in a virtual way, from lads just wanting to get out on the park. And I in the modern game, I have to take up the point that, a couple of games in a couple of days, like, and again, it's not the old, caustic old pro talking, but when we were working from an 8 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock in the evening job and going training and training 3 times a week, and you were going and playing your game, you regularly played double games on a bank holiday, on a Friday night or on a Monday bank holiday. You regularly played games within a short space of time. There was many lads who played multiple games. To be in those days, there was a lot of replays in cup competitions, and then you had interleague games with some of the top players playing interleague games on top of their club stuff. So I don't really subscribe to in the modern game where lads are training literally full time, that they play 2 games in 2 days, or two games in 3 days. That's a thing that modern day footballers should be able to command and be able to handle, in my humble opinion. But I think that you're hitting the right note there, Chris, in terms of saying you need that consistency. You need to look over your shoulder. I only said it in another conversation I had last week. I think I used the phrase, I looked over my shoulder, and you see Alan O'Neill and you just go, for grand, or equally at an earlier, I'm giving away my age, but for some of your listeners and viewers, but you looked around, you looked at, and you just said, Blackmore's there, we're grand today, not a bother. You'd be smoking in the virtual sense, you'd be smoking cigars, but it's that confidence, and that's what a back 3 / back 4 or 5, including your goalkeeper, does for your midfielders, for your wingers. It just gives them that confidence to go out and do what they do, to exploit the skills level that they have, because your defenders, first and foremost, and I know the game has gone modern and changed, but for me, I don't care whether a centre-half can juggle the ball 60,000 times up. For me, I'll take, a Martin Lawlor, a Keeley, a Dunning, a Tony Adams, or whatever it may be. Just make sure that ball doesn't hit the onion sack, and you're still in the game. And with the abundance of skills that that Dundalk have, you can be attractive in the modern game, as has been proven by Stephen and Vinny over the last number of years. But I really just do think it needs some focus, some managerial focus, and in a very, very nice way. And I'm going to do something lighthearted, in a very, very nice way, for the manager to come along with some people and say, do you know what shirt you're wearing there, mate? And kind of, a little tug of the neck and say, hey, come on, So that's just a viewpoint that I have. It's, but it kind of worked for a few years for me.
Do you think with the current circumstances around COVID and stuff, are these group of players very lucky that there's no fans in Oriel Park? I mean, I'm sure you've gotten abuse in your 17 years in Oriel Park thrown at you.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be on top of the league. You'd be still in the cup at some stage, and you launch a Scud missile. You've put 20 balls on somebody's eyelid, from 40 yards or whatever it may be, and one Scud missile. Jeez, Lawlor, you'd be told in no uncertain terms, go back to Dublin, go up the Dublin Road, no, never come back down. And that's what I meant at the very start about this expectancy, and it's a rightful expectancy that people have, because there is an expectancy. The club historically have been so successful as a non Dublin club, and that expectancy has grown over decades and decades and decades. Even before I came to Dundalk, And I was well aware of the level of expectancy on arriving as a young fella wet between the ears coming up to Dundalk. When I would have heard, historic stories of Hasty and Gilmore and Turley O'Connor and Kevin Murray and John Murphy, a league winner, and I'm being introduced to John, and John is looking me in the eye and saying, you better do your stuff up here. Mickey Fox is grabbing you with his hands. And he takes your hands and your hand just disappears, and you're looking at giant of a man. You learn respect. And I think I would like to see the current, particularly the newer lads who have come into Dundalk, somebody to take them aside and explain what playing for Dundalk really means, because it's not there at the moment. It's definitely not there at the moment. And that's why
Martin, is that the role then of, say, Chris Shields as club captain then? Should that be part of his role, do you think? Or
I would have a personal opinion on that maybe Chris feels that he can't do that for some reason. That because I'm looking at Chris Shields of a couple of seasons ago and in most recent seasons, and I'm looking at a man after my own heart, passion oozing out of him, and players in his company excelling because they know that this platform of stability is there in the middle of the park. We're not going to get done in the middle of the park. We're not going to get overrun. And I don't know whether Chris looks to me a little bit subdued. He looks subdued in the Derry game. He looks subdued in the Waterford game. I mean, look at the other night against Waterford. It was a bizarre game in many respects, because Waterford were kind of in the game, and then they gave away like really atrocious goals. But Waterford never looked out of the game. They never looked dead and buried. Like in the last 15 minutes of the Waterford game, they probably could have scored 2 or 3 goals. And there was a kind of a laissez-faire, relaxed attitude. Even though we were winning 3-0, and you're looking at the game, you say, there's something missing here. There's something missing, and I don't know whether Chris, for me, looks subdued. Not so much in his effort in getting the ball and doing what he does, but there's some spark in Chris at the moment that's missing, that I feel is to do with the other players around him, that he feels he can't kind of, get somebody in a psychological way by the scruff of the neck and say, hey, come here, you get your finger out and do whatever you do, because it's not passionate, it's not driven. That confident, when like over the last couple of years, when you had that consistency, when people are looking at Gartland just being there, like rock solid, and as you guys spoke a bit earlier on, maybe a tragedy, an awful goal is let in early in the game. You just felt, the boys are just going to come and in games like the cup final, the heart demonstrated in the cup final, never give up. Rovers getting battered by Rovers, but don't give up. And suddenly, bang, Macmillan comes up and thanks very much, and you get a bit of luck. So I do think there's a level of responsibility that needs to be explained to the newer players that have come in, and I think I really, really do think the goalkeeping scenario is one that needs to be looked after very competently and quickly. And I would finish the point by saying, for somebody to really get those bunch of players and just talk about the opportunity that lies within them to go and win that league, because as good as Rovers appear, I think Dundalk could go and win this league in a heartbeat if they get their house in order quickly.
I suppose, Martin, and a question is then, if you are in the back 3 or 4 and the keeping mistakes that we're having continues to happen no matter who's in behind you, Like, I suppose the answer isn't to keep chopping and changing goalkeeper either, is it?
No, it's definitely not. You give, as I said earlier on, people need to be given, like, for me, in the most positive way possible within the confines of a football environment, of a dressing room environment. Peter Cherry needs a good clip around a year. There's no way to be, and sport is unforgiving, and I don't mean that in any negative way, violent way, or anything like that at all. But if you're playing at a certain level where there's a community of people, there's a community of supporters, kind of with an expectation of what sport can bring to their lives and the responsibility you have to that community of people. And there's been inconsistency. It can't be let. Peter Cherry, for me today, didn't look as if somebody has already spoken to him about his inconsistent performances, because he just doesn't give me that that vibe that he's had a football related chastening about his performance. And there just seems to be, I mentioned it again and repeating myself, there seems to be this laissez-faire, relaxed, so I made a couple of mistakes, or at the back we made a couple of mistakes, or whatever. It's loose, it's carefree. That can't happen at this level. Not at Dundalk Football Club anyway.
Yeah.
In my estimation.
An interesting point I'd love to hear from yourself, Martin. Last week we talked about, there was an interview with Bill Hulsizer, and he questioned at the time that James Rogers put it to him that he thought that there was a slight disconnect between the club and the community. Now, from even listening to you already, you're talking about what it was like to, when you've got a whole community behind you at Dundalk. That's the pressure that's on your shoulders.
Yeah.
Do you think at the moment, the likes of Bill understands how important Dundalk Football Club is to this town?
He doesn't understand it, but I would look at the situation in quite a different way. That on the surface of things, and it's completely understandable for many people to cast the fire and brimstone at Bill Hulsizer. He's of a particular generation. He's he's of a particular culture. He's of he lives in a different country, and it's not a sport that the understanding of that sport comes to him naturally. So that's a really key point. But I wouldn't be throwing fire and brimstone at Bill Hulsizer. This, I'd be saying, Bill, how can we sit down with you as a representative, as a group of supporters or whatever it may be, or the supporters committee? How can we sit down with you and make you understand exactly what you've just said, Chris? Because I think you have to go through all elements of the debate, because we're humans and we have this fight or flight in all of us, this psychology in all of us, going back to primal times of, it's either you fight the tiger that's going to eat you, or you you make sure you're a good runner. So that's primal in all of us. So, and I think if somebody is attacked, and again, there's a generational thing. He's a man of a certain age. He's in a different culturally. They think, he thinks differently to us. And I think, and do you know something? I think he's open enough to an intelligent approach to have that conversation, and to be explained in a really logical way, that there's a sociology attached, a deep sociology attached to my comment about Dundalk and the effect that it has on the community and the meaning of that community. It's not, Dundalk is not a big urban city with 1.5 million people, where there can very well be a disconnect, but it's a it's a community. It's a special community of people, and I think that the sociology of that and the meaning of the club on people's lives and the effect that the club can have on young lives in that community from every perspective, from education, from steering those young kids for to an interest in sport in general and hopefully soccer, that the value of that can bring to those young children's lives in terms of guiding their way forward. That's what I mean, right into adulthood. So that's what I mean by community. And I would love somebody to sit down with Bill and explain that. And explain it that it's not this. We're not looking to explain that in the context of a big, million people city, in a big urban city, cosmopolitan. This is a localized community of people. But you explain all the meaning, the real meaning of the club at that level. And I would like to think that the man is intelligent enough at an emotional intelligence level to be able to take that on board and say, geez, wow, that's a hell of a debate, a hell of an argument. I don't want to use negative terminology like it, but let's say it's a hell of an argument they've put up. So maybe I will change my my attitude here, because there has been absolute interference with a process that has led to it's like a dissolution of what was a very, very solid platform.
Yeah.
And when that happens, there's going to be weaknesses exposed, and those weaknesses have manifested themselves over quite a period of time now. And
I suppose how we start solving that, it now rests in Bill and Jim Magilton's hands. They've got the toughest task now to find the right manager to steer this club in the right direction. I mean, you've worked under some incredible managers. I mean, some of the best managers the league has ever had. The Jim McLaughlin's, Turlock O'Connor's, the name but two. So this is a massive appointment for them, isn't it? Because this is going to say where this club is going.
Yeah, it's huge, and I would like to see maybe that debate. Maybe if a group of people or one feels that Bill Holsey is not approachable or is not accessible, I think that same debate has to be had with Jim Magilton in terms of who he appoints. Do you think that Vinnie Perth didn't understand exactly what I've just outlined when he took the manager's job at Dundalk? He absolutely bloody well did.
Absolutely did, yeah.
He knew that the sociological effect on a family in Dundalk and the meaning of the club to that family and those children and the adults of that family as well, and the socio-economic effect as well for the general area. It's a border town, blah blah blah. So Vinnie Perth would have been very, very well aware of that. And you see, people stay. Real people, real football people, they want to stay involved with Dundalk Football Club. And if you look at all again, Stephen was there. He had a wonderful, wonderful time. And Stephen falls into paradise from a football perspective.
Absolutely.
Absolute partner. And Vinny is there and they're working and Vinny suddenly learns the real meaning of a football club within this community as well. And for a lot of people, I'd say after they come to Dundalk, even the players like Chris Shields and the players that that stayed 5, 6, 7 years, they know what it's about. They know about this loyalty thing, this passion thing. Has that got anything to do with skill on the pitch? Not really. It's a pure and unadulterated passion Your skill is a given. Your skill set is a given. Whether you're an ugly, big, long streak of misery like Martin Lawlor at 6'2", making sure the ball just doesn't hit the net, or whether you the sublime skills of the border fox, himself, Desi, scoring goals and the skill set is a given. It's the awareness and the learning of this other side of being involved in Dundalk Football Club. And that's traditional, that's historic, that's built on massive, massive foundations of commitment and passion that was given to Dundalk Football Club by people over the generations, going back to the Caseys, going back to the Jimmy Hasties, and even further than that to the very foundation of the club. And that's where the real deal is. It's people coming on board.
Yeah.
It's a fella. It's Wilfred Zahibo putting on a Dundalk shirt and saying, this is a white shirt. I used to play in red or yellow or blue. Wilfred, let me explain something to you about that shirt. See that shirt you're wearing? Well, let me tell you. Boom, 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 boom. Wow. Okay, man. I now have responsibility on my shoulders. And I'm not picking. I only pick from the very point of view that he's probably one of the newest members of the club. Opportunity. That's what I'd be looking at, and ways of intelligently approaching what seems to be an unfixable situation. I really think there's so much opportunity there at the moment. I really do.
I suppose speaking of opportunity, Martin, we've heard from yourselves and former teammates a lot over the past few weeks for the 30-year anniversary for the 91 victory. There was a team littered with talent, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. Are you trying to tell me I'm old?
No, absolutely not.
It certainly was.
Well, let's just say I was 8 at the time, so.
Oh, well, there you go. It was a team absolutely laced with talent, and again, you very simply look at the consistency and the number of performances and that those players had. You'll find that they played practically or were involved in all of the games, barring maybe 2 or 3 weeks of injury or whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. So it's that consistency again of a settled team. You put out in Irish football, we all worship John Giles and John and the likes of Liam Toohey were of a certain ilk of knowledge, and that knowledge was carried forward by some really wonderful people. But the one consistent thing that the likes of Liam Toohey and John Giles would have always said is, if you're in a competitive sport, you put out your strongest team to go and win that game. That's your responsibility. The supporters aren't really, they're not really that interested in, isn't it great to see so-and-so getting kind of, 5 or 15 minutes, unless you're a young up-and-coming talent like the wee kid from Sligo, who's rocking it, Johnny Kenny's son.
Johnny Kenny scored again today.
90 minutes and looking like an old pro already. And I think they actually have to look after that kid a little bit more so than exposing him to every single game. But the supporters want to see a Dundalk team going on the park and winning the match. That's the be all and end all. Getting the result, winning a bit of silverware, having the celebration, having the feel good. But they don't want to see. Who's playing wide on the right this week? Who's playing centre forward? Is there changes in the middle? Are we playing two central midfielders? Are we playing one sitting off the back? Are we playing one sitting between the middle and the front two? What system are we playing? And like supporters expect to be able to go and nearly be able to identify a system. I love the way we play. A lot of supporters will have that description. I love the way we play because isn't it great to see so-and-so doing, or do you ever see the tackles he gets in, or do you ever see when he's going up the line? But supporters at Dundalk are, like, for the last while, I said, well, who's actually playing in what position? Do I expect to see, Chris Shields, just because we've been talking about Chris, playing in any one of 3 or 4 potential positions, albeit all connected with the middle of the park, but what sort of a role has he? And people sometimes people would look at the likes of a Chris and say, he's kind of out of sorts today, but he could be doing a role. He could have been asked to do a role that's completely alien to what he was asked to do for 3 games previous. And people are looking at him and saying, he's not very effective today. Or why isn't he going forward? Yeah, he must be, maybe he's carrying an injury or something like that. But probably people at a deeper technical level don't appreciate, actually, Chris was told not to cross the halfway line. And supporters, push on, and you get all the shouts and, why are you not doing this and why are you not doing that? But that's what I'm talking about, this consistency of a system. And you stick by the system and it becomes familiar to everybody. It becomes familiar to the manager, becomes familiar to the players, it becomes familiar to the supporters. Mm-hmm. And you've got to have confidence in a system that dictates that, it doesn't matter what Bows or Rovers do today. We're sticking to our system. We believe in it. We know what we're capable of, and you stick with that. Not to say that you should never change a system. That's a silly thing. But I'm talking about this ongoing consistency, familiarity. And do you know the other advantage of it? If you have a system that does a really, really strong familiarity with, when you do get an injury, the other players who are on the fringe, who are scratching at the door for a place every week, they're coming in and they know what the system is. They know what the responsibility of that role is. And I think, going back to one of the points I made earlier on about the last 3 performances which I've watched, they have been tepid, but they've been tepid on the basis that people don't look as if they're playing to a specific system that they know really, really well. And with that inconsistency, with that uncertainty, comes lack of direction, apparent lack of motivation. Because in any sphere in life, if you're uncertain about something, as humans, we're a bit kind of hesitant. When they asked me to fly the space shuttle, I got in and lads, I'm not so sure, just kidding, obviously. But that's what I'm saying about if you got somebody coming along every week, we're gonna do this, we're gonna change from a 4-2-1-3 or a 3-5-1-2 or whatever the hell. People are kind of saying, now, okay, you're telling me you want me here, but what if this happens and what if that happens? It should be just automated. And that's what I'm saying about you build a system that you believe in, that you have confidence in, and your players fit in around that system. And you pick your players accordingly then to suit that system. You nearly become known for that system. And the players get to know the system. And then if there's slight tweaks and challenges when you go into Europe, yes, but you're at a professional level. But here's what you have going through your veins when you go into Europe. You're walking on thin ice. You're walking on a shallow platform that you're uncertain if it's going to give way or not. Is this system going to work for us today? Jeez, I'm uncertain. Players suffer from not a lack of belief in the other's ability, but a lack of belief in, Jesus, he looks as if he doesn't really understand what he's supposed to do today.
Yeah.
So it's all of these elements of uncertainty about building a solid platform of direction. This is the direction we're going in, guys. We're not spreading the four corners. It's not about the ability of a particular lad that comes in. It's about how can I pick the best player, because there's a system we want to implement at Dundalk Football Club, and who's the best player to suit that system. It's not, as I said, it's not getting a defender who can juggle the ball 60,000 times and he's a right back. I want to make sure that ball doesn't hit the back of the net. So, and this is why I'm talking about a little bit as well. And I know I'm repeating some things, guys, but I'm repeating in terms of Peter doesn't appear to me as if somebody has given him a good clip around the ear, and kind of told him that, look, Peter, you're at a professional performance level here. You have a responsibility. I mean, I wouldn't have got the impression today that Peter Cherry was on the edge of the box, screaming and roaring, instruction. Fellas know, jeez, that, I know when I played with, and again, I mentioned two great goalkeepers, Richie Blackmore and Alan O'Neill. But you're just on the edge of the box, and you can just hear this volume all the time. It never stops, and you're getting, what about this? Do you know when most of that is taking place? Most of that is taking place when Terry Everston is just about to cross the ball in for Desi Gorman, or somebody's going up the right touchline and pulling the ball, or there's a little 1-2 happening on the edge of the opposing box.
Yeah,
that's when most of the defensive work is being done, so that by the time the opposing goalkeeper gets the ball, or plucks it out of the air and set up an attack, you're actually organised at the back defensively. You're not waiting till the fire engines till they're coming over the halfway line, and then the fire engines are calling, Jesus, what's happening here? Who we got? The time that you do your strongest defending is when the ball is in the upper third of the opposition half, is when you're attacking. That's when you defend at your strongest level. And I don't see Peter kind of, maybe possibly, to be fair to him, maybe the coverage and what we view in the television screen. But here's the thing. Everybody is aware that because there's no crowds at the game now, you can hear a lot of shouts and stuff like that. Even the draw of the game there earlier on with Bowes, you can hear the players. I'm not hearing the defenders at Dundalk. I'm not hearing Peter Cherry barking out instructions, solid, confident instructions. As to get organised, pick them up, push on, drop off. And there's plenty of times, obviously, when there's a sufficient coverage of the goalkeeper and defensive areas, that you should be hearing this instructional stuff going on. And you know why you should be hearing it? Because fellas should be saying it loud enough to be heard.
Yeah.
This is not a kind of a, it's not a social event. John, would you mind dropping back for a moment? if you get a moment, and
if you don't mind.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? So I'd rather be more colourful, but it's a web chat. And
fair play to you.
Martin, you just mentioned there, you mentioned Terry Everston and Desi Gorman. Just, it's hard. I want to put you on the spot. We're not putting you on the spot, but
yeah,
you would have played with a golden generation of teams and managers. Would there be anybody that you would have felt, obviously apart from yourself, that would have been just that cut above, not the league, but just had that something, just was a different level of football?
Well, yeah. There's a couple of lads that I would have enjoyed playing with, and I'd mention three from the very perspective, Gary, that you mentioned, that elusiveness, and there's the one and only that lives in my heart from a football perspective is Mr. Tommy McConville, and he was one, but two probably more unlikely lads that people might be surprised to hear me saying, but a lad that played for Dundalk, not for such a long time, but Philip Fitzgerald was an absolutely sublime footballer in terms of skill and intelligence. It didn't happen at Dundalk for him over a long period of time. And then another one would have been Brian Irwin that we would have played in the '95 team in terms of intelligence and just the ability, as you politely put it, to be that step above. Now, of course, I've played with great players right through the generations, and let's face it, lads, I'm whatever 17 or 18 years. So you're probably talking about 3 to 4, 5 year slots, and in those 5 years, there's a lot of brilliant players that were there for 3, 4, 5. Now you're talking about then you're into the kind of the Alan O'Neills and the Tom McNulty's, where really, really long involvements with the club. But I go back to the sublime skills of Leo Flanagan, Pop, as we call them, and the reason give him a free kick anywhere 35 meters out, and goalkeepers would be still preparing themselves, and the ball is in the back of the net already. I didn't see that, because Pop, he just an incredible ability. Nasty little terrier in the middle of the park, my type of lad. But hey, so many skillful players. Jimmy Dainty going back, Jimmy, Tony Kavanagh. Good Lord, Tony, there'd be fellas nearly having to be carted off to the loud general to get their legs untangled when they were playing against Tony. And I really mean that. You'd see fellas, and I was only glad that I never had to face the likes of Tony Kavanagh. And then my old pal Barry, middle of the park. What an engine! What just Barry couldn't probably juggle the ball 60,000 times up in the air, but just give him the ball and say, Barry, see those 5 fellas, just want you to run through them with the ball at your feet, go by them and either set somebody up or stick it in the back of the net. And you were just looking at an absolute genius of a player. There's so many players, obviously, over such a long time. If I only had to spend 8 or 9 years at the club, you'd be able to.
17 was too many, was it?
Yeah, like again, Brian Bourne, skill level in the '95 team, another lad. But then, a deeper conversation with me is about passion and about commitment and about that crest that we pulled on every week. The crest meant something to the players that I played with. So you're talking about the likes of James E. Call, Paddy Dunning, Keeley, Joey Malone, the likes of Alan O'Neill. When Alan had fellas like that in front of him, Alan O'Neill is saying, Jesus, thank God, because, it was...
You can have a day off, maybe.
it was systemized, it was regularized. Alan knew the system, we would know the system, and it was, familiarity.
Yeah.
But not familiarity breeds contempt. It was familiarity, meaning if you decided, I'll be a big time Charlie today, and I think I'll do something extraordinary myself today, you'd be grabbed by the throat. And I actually physically mean that. You'd be grabbed by the throat and put up against the wall or the door at half time in the dressing room. Who that do you think you are?
Yeah.
And that happened a number of times. So I keep alluding back to this passion that I think somebody needs to take Wilfred aside, and maybe some of the other players who are, a little bit blessed with specific skills. But there's another part of the game that is a requirement if you're playing for Dundalk Football Club. And sometimes I think there's a little bit of a mismatch with some of the players that have been brought in with this disconnected scenario related to Bill. And I just think, again, because if you keep throwing the daggers and the spears, the protection mechanisms will go up. And if somebody is protecting themselves, there's no ability to say, you know what, could we sit down and have a conversation? No, go. Pay off, and protect himself. I'm being killed here. So I just think the debate needs to be approached in a different way. And I think I think also there needs to be an awareness if that debate with Bill Hulsier was to take place. I think there needs to be an awareness that if there's a downright arrogance there, that maybe that debate would include a positioning of the club, whether the interest in the club might be for sale to somebody who does care about the community, who does care about the connect and reconnecting the community with the club. And there's a number of scenarios that could be put together in relation to that as well. So I think that has to be on the table as well. If Bill is arrogantly, called out for just having Dundalk, I would put it as the lives of people, the lives of a community of people. They're not his plaything.
Yeah,
they're absolutely not his plaything, and he doesn't have a right as an individual just because he is materially wealthy to use something that's so inherently important on a sociological community level, to use it as a plaything. So I think I think you need to have that in your armor as well in the discussion with Bill. So.
Just Martin, just while we have on, I suppose some people might have noticed in the press and stuff recently, you have a new mental health initiative that you've started yourself. Do you want to tell us a little about that?
I'd be delighted to, Chris. Firstly, the mental health agenda is something that I've always been passionate about, but I would have finished my playing career there around 98, and I very quickly became involved in the general kind of wellness space. I took myself. I left school when I was 13, just after my 13th birthday. So I had no formal education. So I took myself back to college. I became a gym instructor, personal trainer, and over the years, then I would have gone back to college related to being a nutritionist and also with addiction studies. So I pulled all of these elements together around a general interest that I had in wellness and fitness. I'd done yoga for, the lads used to slag me about doing all the stretches out on the park an hour and a half before the game and all that type of thing. Yeah. But for me, it stood to me. I felt it was something that I needed to do at 6'2". I was always lying and gangly, felt I needed to stretch. So I took all of that into the wellness space. And I had a kind of a business called the Life Centre, and I would have designed and developed and delivered a lot of various wellness programs around anything from heart disease to diabetes to osteoporosis to a whole range of all the hormonal differences that women go through, etc., all the physiological changes that happen. So one of the underlying things that always struck me was the in order to get a message through to a person and to affect change with people, I felt their own emotional and mental health was a key factor. So the mental health side of the agenda became really, really important to me. So, for about the last specifically the last 12 years, I was very, very heavily involved in the mental health agenda, along with these, the delivery of these wellness programs. On the back of probably an overall 20 years in that whole space, about 2.5 years ago, I would have, because I had a passionate interest as well. Not a passionate interest, but I've got a great interest in technology, and all the modern, nuances of technology as technology developed over the last 20 years particularly. And about 2.5 years ago, I started to ideate this idea around merging the latest technology, which is AI, artificial intelligence, a thing called deep learning, mental health agenda, because of my experience at the coalface, working with people who were in really, really dark places in their minds. Now, the funny thing about it was these people would have a smile on their face and they would dress well and be articulate and educated, and they'd have, regular jobs. So I would have become aware more and more and more of people being hidden away in these private places in their minds, mentally and emotionally and psychologically. So I wanted to try and come up with a way of helping people who weren't able, who felt within themselves that they're not able to engage with another human being, their nearest and dearest, their best friend that you grew up with since you were 3 years old, male, female, whatever gender, and certainly not the workplace environment. So, because there's a lot of stigmas out there, but there's three kind of general ones. There's a personal stigma that people have around how they feel about themselves and their issues. And there's a societal stigma that these same people are very, very afraid of. And then the one that they're most terrified of is the stigma in the workplace environment, that you end up with a kind of a badge on your forehead, oh yeah, let's not give Martin any more responsibility. Yeah, he's come out and said he suffers from high anxiety or whatever it may be. So in the workplace, the stigma around the mental health agenda is still hugely, hugely prevalent. And all the research, I could pull out reams and reams of research around that. So my idea was to be able to work, bringing technology together in a way with psychology and clinical therapy in a way that would allow that particular cohort of people who feel that they're hidden away and not able to engage about their issues. How can we say to them, guys, first and foremost, we understand that you're out there. We understand that you feel that you cannot, for whatever reason, divulge or share or express or engage with even your brother, your mother, your father, your partner, whoever it may be, and certainly not your workplace environment. So we're saying, guys, that's what we understand. And that understanding comes from 20 years of me being in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of situations where I would have helped people, and ultimately ending with working with people over long periods of time, short periods of time, and ultimately ending up with guiding those people towards the professional clinical therapeutic community, of which I'm not a qualified member. What I've been doing for the last 2 years is I've been researching, and we brought this project together, and it now rests in full collaboration with 2 faculties within the Dublin City University campus in Dublin, of which I'm working on a program, a combined program between DKIT, which is Dundalk. Yep. Happy days. And the guys up there, Garrett and Garrett Duffy and Martina, Martina Goss, they have just been unbelievable in their help. So in a combined program with them, our collaboration is with the technical department up in DCU called the Insight Centre for Data Analytics. And then we're also working in collaboration with the School of Psychology. So we're working at the very, very highest levels of technical and psychological and clinical standards on an ethical basis, because the standards that you have to reach when you're dealing with the subject matter of a person's mental health, it just has to be the highest level. So we're working on that at the moment. We've been working on it, as I said, 2.5 years now, and hopefully it will emerge as a final kind of a final offering, a final solution that we can bring out to people around kind of hopefully September, sometime around September, October. Obviously there'll be final kind of tweaking and stuff like that. Yeah. But basically, my passion for this goes back a very, very, very long time over the years, and in these modern times, with more and more pressures on people, more and more pressure on the facilities that are available for people, people feeling that they can't reach out, the expense of reaching out for help for some people. In some places it's covered by insurance and stuff like that, but there's a whole cohort of people that treatment is very, very expensive. Unfortunately, like in most countries, the mental health agenda, it's not the highest agenda on the political spectrum, and policy is very, very weak in most countries. So it's not just Ireland, and we get, I think, myself and other people in the space, we get very, 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 very frustrated at the lack of attention, the lack of the conversation in the media space about. I'm talking about the real conversation. I'm not talking about people using the mental health agenda as the latest flag of attention. Oh yeah, let's talk about the mental health agenda. I'm talking about the really, really deeper way that the agenda reaches a political level, that there's real attention given to how the hell can we help people. And that's not there. We're not there yet. But do you give up just because something isn't there? Do you give up on an aspiration, on an ambition? Do you give up on somebody who is just a beautiful human being, but they struggle? And and unfortunately, there's a lot of people in the industry as well. No, I should rephrase that. I do apologize. There's quite a number of people in the industry. So I retract the word a lot. Yeah. The number of people in the industry who, having worked with a client or a person, maybe for 6 or 8 months, on a journey, let's say a journey of improvement in their well-being and stuff like that, and suddenly, a very, very, very natural part of this scenario is people. Kind of falling away, like people, maybe having weaker moments and falling back into an old habit. And some of the people in the industry tend to turn that issue around and say, oh my God, all the work I done with you, all the time I put into you, and it becomes about them.
Yeah.
And it's not about the person, the human who is struggling. So a big part of the mental health agenda is working with people and expecting people to relapse quite regularly, and just normalizing that, because when it's not normalized, it retrenches the unfortunate person who has relapsed, because they're feeling guilty then about, I've had this person, I've had all these resources helping me over months and months and months, and now I'm after relapsing, and then they take this shame, this extra shame on top of their normal issues. So it's about really having the empathetic understanding of that at a very, very deep level, and being able to factor that into how you work with people. And that's what's really, really needed at a professional level with some people. But critically, that's what I would love to see at a kind of a serious political level. And we talk about communities. Communities are so impacted right across the country, north and south, right across Europe, right across America. Communities are impacted. If you talk about a local community like Mayo or Dundalk, and somebody within that community loses their life at their own hand, God bless them. The whole community is impacted. Emotionally, psychologically, it lingers. It creates doubt for caring parents about their younger children. How will this affect them? Would they feel that that's something that they might do? And it creates all of this fear. So it's about building these. It's about building community. It's about building community awareness of being empathetic to your fellow person, your neighbor in communities, being empathetic, understanding that you don't know what's going on. This famous term, nobody knows what's going on behind closed doors, And I talked over a couple of years about, breaking eggshells. Don't be afraid to break the eggshells. Don't be afraid to ask that difficult question. We're social beings in Ireland. Chris, Gally, how's it going? Grand, Jason, grand. Hang on. Let's pull back the curtains on that. Yeah. Now, I'm going to ask you again. How the hell are you? I haven't seen you for whatever. How the hell are you really? Oh, well, it becomes a very, very different agenda.
Yeah.
But that's only when people are shown empathy, real empathy, emotional intelligence and emotional empathy around the subject matter. Instead of how's it going? Yeah, great. Yeah, not a bother on me. But they wear the mask and the cloak of normality, where sitting behind that, there's some really real darkness going on. So we're trying to, as I said, bring a modern solution in these modern times that we can help people at a level of 365 days of the year, 24 hours a day. We're able to support them. So it's a great project. There's a team of about 10 people, really passionate about it, involved, and it's just so wonderful to have the validation of the academics at such a high level with DKIT and DCU involved. So it's really wonderful. It's great validation for the project. So yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
brilliant initiative.
It's called OPA Mind, OPA, and OPA. Our project is really about empowerment. It's the empowerment of of individuals and human beings. And the reason I would have gone for Opa is it's very fondly used in Greek culture. You know, when they smash the plates and they in celebration they go Opa.
Oh, yeah.
They, Zorba the Greek, the dance that they do, and they, do you know that Zorba the Greek dance where it starts really, really slowly and then it builds up and everybody gets together, and then at the end they all hold hands and they go Opa. So it's about uplifting, it's about empowering, and in a very humble personal opinion around the mental health agenda, I feel that the majority of people have the answers a little deeper within themselves to empower themselves to grow in confidence. But we kind of just provide the tools to let them be self-empowered. And when they become self-empowered like that, it's really, really strong because they feel it from deep within themselves that, hang on, I've done this. This is something I've done. It's not been, you haven't been given a tablet to fix a condition, or you haven't been, you haven't been told to, do this, do that, do the other. This, a lot of what we do comes from within, and we just kind of nudge people and help people on a daily basis. And the other good thing is about OPA is people don't have to engage directly, so it's not a two-way engagement. Mm-hmm. We just support them one way on a daily basis, and so they become empowered. But it's really interesting, and something that's very close to my heart. So, yeah.
I think we can tell by the passion already in what you're saying. All right.
Well, yeah, it's a little bit. It's how I feel about communities of people, and this word community is very important to me, and it always was. And I think I learned and I was educated on the essence of what community really means by the likes of Mickey Fox and other people in the community in Dundalk over the years who I greatly respected, and not just because he's gone, but and passed, God bless him. But Eamon Heine was a man of deep emotional intelligence. Businessman, built a great business, but good Lord, a conversation with that man could nearly change your life. But equally with Mickey Fox, in under the stand in the boot room with a cup of pink tea and a Marietta. You just learned about what Dundalk Football Club meant, and I really mean that, and of course I stayed around for a couple of years because of that. So there you go.
But it's just on kind of a sadder note, when you just mentioned community, and we're all football community, and news came out today that a former teammate of yours, Dermot Keeley's son Alan, suddenly passed away, and we just from the Town End podcast and Show Yourself, Martin, we just want to pass on our condolences to the Keeley family.
Sincere
28 years of age, it's no age, and it's just a sudden loss for former Shelbourne and Finn Halstead.
Footballer. A footballer. One of the football family, as we're all part of, indeed. It's my sincere condolences to Dermot and his extended family, and everybody in associated with Alan in the community of Dundalk as well. So but Dean and Dean and the other lads are
Steph,
fantastic project, heading the game. What a great tagline. Common, get your head in the game. Come on, and again, fantastic. Just great to see the development of it over the last number of months, and the various initiatives. Fantastic. The head in the game park. Every time, like watching the game earlier on, super to hear the commentator. and the co-commentator the number of times, Mickey Cook and is it Des Curran mentioning. So it's really, really wonderful, and I know Dean is a real is a really compassionate guy around the agenda as well. So it's just, it's wonderful. It really, and I remember they're connected with Jigsaw. I remember Tony Bates starting Jigsaw many moons ago. I used to be, tormenting the Directorate of Health in Europe around that time. A guy called David Byrne. He was the top guy of the Directorate of Health, and I'd be writing off these emails saying, David, come on, look at Coca-Cola, look at McDonald's. They're two of the most known brands in the world. I said, why don't you take it like 100 million? Now at that time, it was probably back in the early 2000s. Why don't you take 100 million of a budget and make, health and wellness as marketable, and promote health and wellness with a brand as, and really push it as much as Coca-Cola and McDonald's push their brands. And of course, who was Lawlor back then? Who is he now?
You're still a legend.
I'm so delighted to see Chris and the guys working so very, very well in that space. And obviously, the more the merrier. Any initiative that helps people is so wonderful.
Martin, you've been so good to us tonight for your time. We really do appreciate it. And from a lot of the comments that come in, a lot of people appreciated it as well. They definitely appreciated your passion for Dundalk Football Club. And I think we all agree that that's what's missing maybe from this team is the passion and commitment to the badge.
Yeah, but I think I'd leave it on a. I think it's fixable and quickly.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be distraught as to where we are now as a team positionally in the league. Yeah, it's been disappointing, but I'd rather be looking at all the things that can be done than have the debate. And I always kind of try and use this expression. When you're driving in the car, you have this little mirror up that you glance into, and it's a rear view mirror. And when you compare that to the size of the panoramic window that opens up the world to you, and the window in front of you is much brighter, much better to look through that than looking in the rear view mirror. So that's the way. That's what the psychology I would like to apply to all the supporters of Dundalk. Get in behind the team as much as you can with positivity. Any connection with the players, welcome them, but hit them with the fact that they need to have more passion. Put the responsibility back on the shoulders of the players, and I think you'll see improvements. And please God, organisationally, and from a functionality point of view, as a club, as a corporate club, they'll get their house in order. But I can see us, in the top three at the very least, with a bit of luck, maybe in the top two by the end of the season. I really mean that, and I believe it. So there you go. Listen, guys, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mark.
Appreciate it. It's always good to talk about Dundalk Football Club and our community.
It's always good to hear from a legend like yourself, so you're more than welcome back on anytime.
There you go. Anytime, Chris. I'm always available for a chat where Dundalk Football Club is concerned.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Martin. Thanks for your time.
Take care, guys. Have a great one. Have a good evening. Yeah. Cheers. Bye.
Bye. There you have it.
There's certain
the boys would be mad to miss out on that now.
Yeah, there's certain people you can talk to or listen to that just draw you in. And I was fascinated listening to them. Like I could sit and listen to them all night. Stephen Kenny has a similar effect on it. It just draw you into a conversation. And he's a fascinating man. What he was talking, over 600 appearances in total in the League of Ireland. It's
madness, isn't it?
Ridiculous.
Imagine 17 years though with Dundalk Football Club. Like the players that he's only mentioned, and he just glosses over names like they're nothing.
Yeah.
Oh
Jimmy,
my God.
just
Tom McNulty, Tom was solid, so that's, and he glosses over him. But Terry Everson would be up the front, and but that's what he does. You're like, oh my God, like, these are just such legend players.
Yeah, it's just a different breed, just a different breed of football.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we should probably go back to footballing matters real quick, just before we get to our man of the match, which I've completely forgotten about. Till now.
Double up on Friday. We haven't done up.
Yeah, so I think we'll give away a mug tonight. Am I right? Wait, mug for our man of the match. I'll go back through comments real quick, and I suppose, Guy, from your own point of view, it's probably a hard one tonight for your man of the match. Yeah, but
it's a little bit tougher than last week. There wouldn't be an outstanding candidate, but I mean, at the same time, two spring to mind, and it would be Shieldsy and Mickey Duffy.
Okay.
I would probably just say, I know his name comes up every week, but Mickey Duffy, he does stand out. He does stick out when he's on it. There is nobody better in the league than him. I know
another assist from the corner again today.
Yeah, I think he's just at different level. He's just a different. I know it's the same old week in, week out, Mickey Duffy man of the match, but there's not much to kind of go against him.
It's funny. Do you know between the comments, like, just as I'm going through them here, there's a lot obviously for Mickey Duffy, but there's a fair few for Val on his debut. People have just said, without I suppose really accelerating, but he's some
hero.
He was really exceptional. I'd say it's probably pretty close between them. You're probably talking about maybe 6 comments each for both of them there. So like there's really not. And when you think, I think Val coming in, it couldn't have been easy for him tonight.
Oh no, not at all. No.
Probably not playing in a position he would have been too familiar with either. On a pitch like that, on a night like that, with the pressure of how the season has gone for us.
I can see where you're going here with this, Chris. I can see where you're going.
I don't know what to do. I normally don't get anything.
For the night that's in it, I mean, we could, because there's only 2 of us, so the chances are it was going to be 50-50.
Right, we'll agree that between the 2 of us, right? So we'll go with everybody else's comments here. It's pretty even on this between Mickey Duffy and Val. What are we thinking? Tiernan's coming in now with 1.
Yeah, on the basis of what you're after listing there. Yeah, look, I have no issues with going with Val, absolutely.
You just agree with Tiernan with Val, and he'd be well chuffed with that.
I don't know, is it him getting the mug?
Yeah. Quick look at the comments for Val, and I'm thinking, because they comment in a fair bit throughout the week and on the shows all the time. So the Twitter handle, the Lillywhites for life. I think it's Ryan behind that one. I think we'll give them up that direction. What are you happy with that?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Just PM with the address over the next day or two, and we'll get it to you.
Yeah. There we go. Just looking at 1 or 2 of I think the Harps match has finished 2-1 to Harps over Derry tonight. So there's just some of the results coming in there. So let's have a quick look at the table and see what that has actually meant tonight. So Shamrock Rovers remain top, 9 games, 23 points. Pats 21 points. Gap then down to Sligo in 3rd on 16. So Finn Harps stay in 4th position on 14 points. Then it's Strada and ourselves on 10 points behind. So we're 4 points off 4th. Probably a draw would have been ideal there.
Oh, stop. Yeah. And that, when your luck's out, other teams around you don't do any favours either. It's just, we're just having that we're just in that slump. But look.
Yeah. And I think it's a thing that you got to have your own house in order, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. We're all going to take Martin's positivity on board now. We're going to run with this. That's. Yeah, somebody listening to this, ring Martin Lawlor and get him up the ring park.
You wouldn't be the first to say that on the comment.
Just get him in there. Just get him talking to play. Like, no better man.
He was fantastic on it tonight. Going on last week's predictions, nobody got that one right.
Not surprising. I nearly got 2-0 just the other way around.
Yeah. I got 2-1 and you had 2-0. I was convinced that we weren't going to keep a clean sheet this time, but I did not imagine that was going to happen. So Pat's on. Oh, Sligo on Friday, should I say?
Yeah,
Sligo. Yeah. What are we thinking? I mean, that's going to be.
It has draw written all over it.
Hmm.
You know, I just, yeah. But then again, look, I don't want to get bogged too much down by tonight's game. You know, we've got a week now to get ready. You know, well, not a week. They've got their week to get ready. I think we'll see it. I don't think we'll see the similar lineup. I think, you know, the likes of Zahid will come in and start. If we play like we did, I suppose it's hard to say if we play like we did tonight or we played like we did last week. I'm going to have to know. It's going to be draw. It is draw right now. I can't see anything else but a draw.
The Sligo's, you know, the fact that they threw it away last kick of the ball tonight, does that have any effect?
Play on them. Yeah, it might play on the mind. But then again, it could spare them up. You know, they could say, right, we're not making that mistake again. Get out and get it from the start. Like, if they start like they did against us the first time we played them, and put away their chances, it could be an early one. We could be an early show.
We're back into the win category again, though, aren't we?
Yeah, I think maybe a 1-1. I don't. It's very rare I go for a draw, but I just can't. I just don't see it. I don't see it any other way.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same. I think they probably got too much going forward, and a lot of confidence there in younger players, and we just seem to be. Confidence just seems to be zapped out of us. It just, you know, I think that's where the mistakes are coming from.
And if Gibson even gets half a run on anyone, like he's at a crack. Him and James Brown have been two outstanding. I know James Brown's a draw, but they've been two outstanding footballers this year. Excellent.
Shows the talent within the league. You know what? I'm gonna go for another roller coaster, but I'll also go for a draw. I'm gonna go for another 2-2.
2-2. Go on, call it.
Apparently,
we're living on the edge.
We're living on the edge, but with a defense that's been hit worse than Baghdad. I just think, it could be the opposite this time. I think we could get some early goals, but I just don't see us holding a lead. And I think that's what might go against us on this, like the opposite maybe of tonight. I would take your 1-1. I would take anything like that. I just love to see a game with little mistakes. There's something to build on from this group of players. I would say, you know, we were after giving that everything there, and it was. Yeah.
Like if you're beaten by an absolutely phenomenal strike, there's not a lot you can do about that. But when you're beating yourself before you get going, it's like it's just so deflating. It must be just a nightmare for players. It must just be I don't know. And like Martin said, they need to be taken by the scruff of the neck. They need someone to go in. I'm not saying that's not happening, but somebody's got to go in there and just lay down the law big time.
It's something I've noticed though from Shamrock Rovers this year. I mean, they got the late one against Drogheda, and that do you remember even under Kenny, we were never dead as a team.
No.
We were way into 90 whatever minute we were playing at a time, and we were still going for it. Yeah. I wonder, is that what this team needs? We just need to have a huge slice of luck and a 95th minute goal just to lift everyone coming off that pitch, whether that's a winner, an equaliser, or something just to build on.
And when you've had the run of results we've had, albeit the last two games wins, you just don't seem to get that break. It just doesn't seem to happen. Like, I can't remember what now, but Duffy went into the net and I just had the ball. I don't know what, one of the header. It just wasn't falling. Zahibo, a great cross in from Duffy. I think it was Duffy. Zahibo missed a header right in front of the goals. He just didn't get anyone near it. Yeah. And if he connects with it at all, it's in the back. And that's some days. It seems to be this thing that we just can't. We've hit how many times we hit the bar, the post, the cross. It's just.
It's ridiculous.
It'll come right eventually, but it's got to come in the next couple of games. It's really got to get. We usually get firing on all cylinders. Like Martin said, look, I'd love that. I'm gonna take on board Martin positively that we can still finish top two or even win it. But you know, we gotta get. It's like there's something just holding them back, and I think they just need to go out and have a perfect game. I know that's it's pie in the sky stuff, but look, they got to go. There's no problem taking draw. I can take a draw off anyone, but when you're shooting yourself in the foot, it's criminal. Hopefully we can get rid of that.
I think in the interest of fairness as well, I think we'll get the predictions of the other two boys, and we'll get that posted up on social media during the week. So we're not going to this game.
If they get it, we'll never hear the end of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Without the two boys, we've probably done the longest show, so I don't know what that says.
a worthwhile show to Martin Lawlor.
Exactly. Yeah, I was going to just say, and a huge thank you to Martin Lawlor tonight. I think, listening to his talking about passion, his passion about football and mental health awareness tonight. I think it's been really invaluable, and thanks for anyone that stayed on and has watched the whole show back. I would encourage anybody else just maybe to watch it back, because he talks a lot of sense in football in terms and everything else tonight. Like you say, I think we should all take a bit of the optimism and passion that he shows when he's talking about Dundalk Football Club, and we could be in a much better place.
That's it. And that's maybe that's all it is. Maybe it's a mental thing. Maybe it's just an attitude change. It could be just flicking a switch. That's what we could be talking about, And it's like I keep saying. I've said it 6-7 times tonight. When a game starts like that tonight, you have no chance. Like you have to have a lot of luck to come back from 2-0 down, no matter who you are. But look, we take the positive. Like Mark said, you got to take the positive. But we came back from 2-0 a couple of weeks ago, that wouldn't have happened.
No,
so look, we go on to Sligo and we see what happens.
See, now you're getting on my 5 games unbeaten. Right, Kelly, we will leave it at that, and we'll be back after this Sligo match as per usual. Should have a full contingent, all the lads back in. Couple of late injury scares here, and we don't have strength and depth of numbers in this squad.
Well, unlike Dundalk with 32 players.
Yeah, we could have done with a few. So tune in again. As I said, we'll be back after the Sligo match, and until then, come on to town.